That was batshit insane. It was clearly a male voice. I peered through the bars and could see nothing in the distance. Why in God's name would anybody lock someone up in the basement of a movie theater? I was trapped in here as well for the time being, though at least not behind bars. A hand search around the door failed to locate any key hanging nearby. I stuck my head up to the bars and shouted, "Hello, can you hear me?" Yes, I hear you," came the distant voice. "Please let me out. I'm starving in here. I would like to help you, but I don't have the key." The voice paused for a moment. "Look under the work table. I remember my captor reaching around under there." Captor? So this wasn't by accident. Okay, hold on. What else was he going to do? Let me check. Nothing was apparent beneath the dirty wooden table that was piled with old magazines and movie posters. I slid my hand around the inside edge, careful not to pick up any splinters. I was about to give up when I felt a nail sticking out in the far left-hand corner. Hanging on it was a thick, slightly rusty key. I returned to the barred door and it slid right in the lock. A quick turn to the left and the latch was thrown. The door swung open and I yelled, "I got it!" "Thank goodness," said the disembodied voice inside. "Now let me out." I pocketed the key and cautiously made way through a dim hallway in the direction of the voice. After a few steps, the iron door slammed shut behind me. I quickly spun around, but there was no one in sight. Fuck. The door must have had a spring on it. Oh well, at least I had the key. I turned back toward the voice. "Come on, man, what's the fucking holdup?" That seemed a bit rude coming from someone I was trying to rescue. I continued forward. I came to a split in the hallway. To the right was a string of weak light bulbs along the ceiling, fading off into the distance. They could not have been more than 25-watt bulbs. The voice was coming from the left. In that direction there was a single shaded bulb, which poorly illuminated what could only be called a prison cell. A row of thick iron bars with a cell door in the center. I was hit with an incredible stench, like a wet dog rolling in its own feces. Surprisingly, the cell's occupant was not readily apparent. There was a dark lump huddled in the back from which the voice issued. "Throw me the key," he said. I fished it out of my pocket but hesitated. I certainly did not want to give up my precious key. "Why don't you step into the light first?" I froze when I saw two bloodshot yellow eyes gaze at me from the darkness. Before I could even react, the shape rushed me, and two extremely hairy arms reached for me through the bars. I instinctively pulled back but was so startled I dropped the key. The beastly creature immediately dropped to all fours, and its wickedly clawed hands groped through the bars for the key. It was then I realized the werewolf, for it was clearly one of those, was not only caged but also its hind legs were chained to the back wall. That likely saved my bacon as it could not quite reach the key on the floor. I had the presence of mind to stomp down on the groping claw. The monster yelped and growled, revealing its sharp canine teeth. I snatched up the key and backed up until I hit the opposite wall. The thing snarled at me. "Come on, mortal. Release me and I promise not to harm you." Then it licked its lips with its exceedingly long pink tongue. Somehow that did not inspire me with trust. Thanks but no thanks," I said and began to make my way back to the front gate. "Come back here, asshole. You can't leave me in here like this. I'll starve to death." I kept going. A fucking werewolf. In the basement of a movie theater? What the hell was going on here? But I was in for a shock that was nearly as jarring. There was no keyhole on this side of the gate. Fuck, what now? I tried reaching around the metal plate but could barely fit my fingers through the bars. It wasn't even close. A few minutes ago I had been stranded in an empty movie theater. Now that seemed like the good old days compared to being trapped in a motherfucking dungeon with a werewolf. It seemed I had only two alternatives. Spend the night by the gate and hope someone would free me in the morning. Or explore the right-hand path. Option 1 did not seem particularly viable, especially given that someone was into locking up creatures down here, albeit not without reason in the case of a werewolf. If option 2 didn't pan out, I could always fall back on option 1. Besides, I was inclined to put some distance between myself and the werewolf, caged or not. So option 2 it was. The hallway was lined with aged wooden planks over a gray stone floor. I hadn't wandered far when the werewolf let out a howl that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I was glad to be headed away from that. Following the string of lights down the hallway, I came upon a door on my right, of steel-reinforced construction with a rectangular slot at eye level. The door was securely locked. After the werewolf incident, I was a bit hesitant, but curiosity won out and I slid the slot open. Inside, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling revealed the room contained only a large wooden chest and a bare metal cot of wires suspended on springs. Just for the heck of it, I tried my key and the lock clicked right open. Out of nowhere, I felt a tingling in my hands, and an image popped into my mind of a lock mechanism being defeated. What the fuck was that? At any rate, I entered the room. This time I immediately looked behind me to make sure the door did not close on me of its own accord. Maybe I was a little paranoid, but who could blame me? I dragged the cot over to prop open the door before examining the chest. The chest was locked, but my key slipped right in and did the job. Once again, I got that tingling sensation and lock mechanism image in my mind's eye. Strange as fuck. I ignored that and opened the chest. Inside, I was delighted to find a bag of beef jerky and a bottle of water. The other two items were just weird. A small sword with a broken blade and a leather pouch with a set of lock-picking tools. I had never picked a lock in my life, but after seeing those images in my mind, I seemed to have an inkling of how it was done. Whatever. I stood up, pocketed the lockpicks, and stuck the sword in my belt. Hopefully I would have no need of that, but I didn't want to leave it behind. I drank a slug of water, then sat on the cot and munched on some jerky. It was a little stale, but certainly edible. I briefly considered laying on the cot to get some sleep. It seemed I was too hyped up, and without a mattress, the cot would be none too comfortable. I took another drink, and decided to save the remaining beef jerky for later. It was time to continue down the hallway. The hallway continued for several hundred feet, with a few branches off to the right or left. Those were not lit, so I did not pursue them. Eventually I came to another locked iron bar gate, but this time my key did not fit. I was not anxious to try those unlit corridors, so I gave the door a perfunctory kick. As the gate rattled, a decidedly feminine voice came from out of sight on the other side. "Hello, is someone there?" Yes," I responded. "What's going on here?" You must have made it past the werewolf." "How did she know about that?" "I need you to come in and release me. Is that so complicated?" I equivocated with, "No, not really, but my key doesn't work in this lock." "Pick the lock, silly. What did you think those tools were for?" "I've never done that before," I said. "How did she know I had lockpicks?" "You must know how to insert a stick in a hole," she said suggestively. "Just do that and wiggle it around like you're trying to find the sweet spot. Surely you've had experience with that." "Give me a second." Her words were making me distinctly uncomfortable. "Of course, big boy. It's not like I'm going anywhere." I pulled out the tools and began working on the lock. Surprisingly, I could visualize the mechanism in my mind, and there were only 2 pins to manipulate. I lifted them and pushed on the door handle. It sprang right open, and again I got that tingling sensation. Child's play. "See, I knew you had it in you," said the voice. "Now come over here and let me take a look at you."